Hi, Stefan the BMW DIY guy here today. What we're going to be doing today is ceramic coating on my 435. I'm super excited about this, and I'm looking at the entire line of CarPro products to do this right. Starting off with the brand new CK UK, so the UK version 3.0. This is their brand new formula. It's just coming out. It's even better than what they've had before, and I can't wait to get it on my car. I've also got the full line of CarPro products where we're looking at the Iron X, the Tar X, the Erasure, everything else to make sure to prep your car and do it right. This is something I've been really wanting to do. And when I looked at it, I really wanted to make that investment to do it right. This isn't cheap. This isn't going down to the auto parts store and getting a $10 bottle of car soap and a $15 bottle of cheap car wax that lasts a week or two or maybe a month if you're lucky. This is something that you want to do and you want to do right because it's going to protect your car, it's going to look even better, and potentially can last for years if you treat it right and do it properly. Now, the other cool thing about this is that you can save yourself a lot of money by doing this yourself. There's a lot of pros out there that can do this for you, and they're going to charge a lot for labor because it takes a lot of time to do. It's not that hard if you follow the steps and do it very, very carefully. So I'm going to walk you through that process. This is going to go on my F32 435. It's sitting out in the driveway right now, bugs all over the bumper, driving it around. You're going to see what it's like to take it through that full every stage from washing, decontamination. I'm going to buff it to make sure to take out any scratches and swirls. Now, as we talk about the tools involved in this, there's some tools I don't have. So you'll see people wash the cars with pressure washers and snow cannons. If I had one, or soap cannons, if I had one, I'd use it, but you don't have to have one. I've got a hose, a couple of buckets, the right tools, and I'm gonna walk you through this whole process. Also, when you wash your car, you want to be really careful, and there's some basic steps on how to wash your car properly. Now, there's a million opinions on that, but if you cover about 80% of it and do it, with that 80% approach of the advice, you'll do fine. You wash from the top down, and I'm going to summarize each step as you go through. So as I decontaminate, I'll show you that. I'm not going to show you the whole car because nobody wants to watch a 3-hour video of how to do this process all end to end. But I'll show you each section along the way so you can get good instruction, you can duplicate it around the rest of the car, and then move on to the next step. So let's start with the car. It doesn't look too bad. Washed it about a week ago, bugs and everything. Let's start there. I'll show you what we're looking at when we start. Okay, so here we are from the start. So pretty shiny, looks pretty good. I wash my car regularly, I wax it regularly. I do some light paint correction. I have an Orbital Buffer that I'll show you as I move forward with this. But as you can see, we got a bunch of chunky bugs across the bumper, and we're gonna need to make sure to take all of that off so she's nice and clean as we do this process. So here's the start, and the first thing we're gonna do is start with the wash. So I'll show you that next. Okay, so the car's rinsed off as well as I can. Like I said, it's a great place that if you have a pressure washer, definitely use it. And if I had a foam cannon, I'd use it too, but it's not required. So we're gonna use the 2-bucket method. You have one bucket that has all your soap in it. The other one's clean, clear water. And always use a good mitt. So this is a great, big foamy mitt. So a couple of guidelines as you do this. Always wash from the top down, and never let your mitt hit the ground, right? If your mitt hits the ground, switch to another one if you have it, or make sure to wash it thoroughly. Don't pick up gravel or rocks and anything that you do through this process. Be really careful on anything you drop. I'll especially touch that on the clay bar later. But as you're looking at this, we're gonna wash from the top down. You can do the tires first, and if you do the tires first, make sure you use a separate bucket. Use a separate bucket to wash your tires, a separate mitt, which I always do. So we're gonna wash from the top down as we go through it, because you want all the dirt to come down. You never want to wash from the bottom up, right? So rinse as thoroughly as you can. You don't want to grind anything into your paint, and always use a clean mitt. So I'll show that a little bit as we go through, and we'll move on to the next stages. But just be really careful as you do this. Use your mitt, get the soap, wash your car really thoroughly, rinse it off in the clean bucket. Make sure that it's rinsed really, really well, and all that dirt that you've picked up can wash out into the clean water. You'll be amazed on how dirty your clean bucket will become. And last thing you want to have that is in your soap bucket that you're putting back on the car. So all of these stages, your focus on this is to decontaminate your car the best you can, because when this ceramic coating goes on, it's essentially permanent, and you want to make sure your car is absolutely ready to go. So let's wash through washing this a little bit, and then we'll move on. Make sure to rinse. All right. All right, so you guys get the idea. I'm going to wash the rest of the car and I'm going to move on and I'll show you the next steps. Okay, so great first wash. A couple of things to think about really quickly. I mentioned washing your wheels. You use a separate bucket and a separate mitt. I always do that last. So as dirt's coming down through the car, I always do my wheels last. So this is a good basic wash. Now the other thing is I have the great new CarPro car shampoo I didn't use on this first initial wash because I'm not going to waste it, right? That shampoo is good for washing your car when it's got a ceramic coat, so I'm not going to waste that better shampoo on my car right now that doesn't have it yet. So this will probably be, now I'm going to wash it a couple more times as I'll show you, but this will be one of the last times I wash my car for a long, long time in ordinary, good quality, big car shampoo. So I'm going to lightly dry it because we're going to do the Iron X next, and I'll show you that a little more closely because we want to get all the iron contaminants off, and you're going to spray it on, let it sit, and then wash it back off. So I'm going to lightly dry. You're going to go through a lot of microfiber towels today, so I'm going to lightly dry it, and then we'll do the Iron X next. Okay, so here's our next step in the decontamination stage. So this is the CarPro Iron X. It's a great way of taking off any iron residue or any contaminants. It's make sure you shake the bottle really well. Your car should be clean. Shake the bottle really well, and you're going to leave this on for 3 to 5 minutes. Now, make sure and always read the directions. This is avoid letting it dry in direct sun. Now, I've got some overcast today, but it is something I'm going to keep an eye on to make sure that I don't let this dry on. Okay, we're going to spray this on, let it sit for 3 to 5 minutes, and then we're going to rinse it off. So, and again, you just lightly spray on as we go through, and I'm going to get my wheels as well to take off any brake dust to help with that process too. It's not going to harm anything there. So just lightly spray on. And I'm going to work my way all the way around the car, as you can see. Except for the windows, of course. And I figure by the time I get all the way back around to the other side of the car, I'll be about 3 minutes. So I'll give it a little bit more, then rinse it off, and then we're going to do the tar next. Okay, it's probably been that 3 to 5 minutes. It says use a soft sponge. I've got a detailing sponge that I used that was new to rub it in a little bit. It's right on the edge of starting to dry, so I'm going to make sure to rinse it off now. Last thing I want to do is let this dry on, so I'm going to really make sure to follow the directions the best you can. There you go. Now, ironically enough, I'm seeing more iron red on my driveway than anything else, but make sure to wash it off really thoroughly, and then I'm going to dry it again because the Tar X is going to go on next for the decontamination for tar. So I'll show you that on the next step. Okay, so the Iron X is off, and really make sure to wash really thoroughly because it feels like it's kind of a thick coating. So as it washes off, it really takes some extra hose pressure to get off. Now, if you have a pressure washer, it'll probably come off quicker. You know, I've got a good garden hose with a good nozzle, but it worked just fine. Don't think you need extra equipment for this. Okay, Tar X is next. Now, I'm going to dry the car. Like I said, we're going to go through a lot of microfiber towels today. That's a good thing, so make sure you got a good clean pack of them. If the towel hits the ground, let it go. Just let it go. Worst case scenario, you can throw it in the wash later and make sure that it washes out well, but don't pick up dirt and scratch it into your paint. So I'm going to dry thoroughly. Now, the Tar X goes on dry, same sort of thing. Make sure to read all the directions. It's going to go onto your car dry. It's going to sit for a little while, and then you're going to wash it off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dry the car, apply the Tar X, let it sit the recommended amount of time, and rinse it off, but then I'm going to wash the car again. I've still got my soap bucket over there. I'm going to refill it. Again, using my regular soap. I'm not using the CarPro soap yet, but to make sure to get it all off as directed, and then we'll keep moving forward. But we're making good progress. As you can see, none of this is hard. It's just a matter of just taking time to get it done. So I'm going to dry, Tar X, wash, and then we'll be ready for the next step. Okay, so the car's all dried off and I'm ready for the Tar X. Now, shake it up really, really well. And if you're in a similar situation like I am, obviously I'm sitting out here in the sunshine. The car's going to be warming in the sun. It's dry and it's going to be warm. Don't let this dry on your paint. Again, it's the same spray on. Let it sit 2 to 3 minutes. The bottle says don't let it sit more than 7 or 10. So really take that seriously, especially as my sun is starting to come out more and more. And if you're in the same circumstance, move quickly as you go through this. So I'm going to spray this on. We'll start here. I'll work my way around the car. I'm going to check my time, but probably by the time I get around, I'll be in about that 3-minute range. I also know I don't have a lot of tar to come off, so depending on your circumstances, you may have a lot, depending on your roads, depending on how clean you've kept your car, all of those sort of things. So I'm going to spray this on, work my way around, and then it says full wash it again. So I'm going to wash it with my same wash bucket, and I should be good to go. So I'm going to get that done. Okay, so all the Tarex is washed off. So I made sure to rinse it very, very thoroughly. I also always rinse really thoroughly through all your drain tracks, so like the cracks in your hood and your trunk, to make sure you're not having chemicals that capture in there and run down later. Washed it thoroughly again, and then I'm going to dry it. So another couple microfiber towels, and I'm going to put her back up in the garage, because the next stage should be everything inside. We're going to do clay bar, which if you've never done that before, it's not hard. I'll show you how to do it. And then we're going to polish. Again, everything in the house, especially, or everything in the garage. And then we're going to get down to it with the ceramic coating. So I'll explain it also when we get there. But if you haven't done clay bar before, there's a couple of really simple steps, and you'll really be amazed at the difference something as simple as clay bar makes. But the car has to be cool. Never clay bar your car when your car is warm, because the clay will kind of turn into a putty and want to stick down. That's the last thing you want. So I'm going to dry the car, get her all nice and thoroughly dried off. Then I'm going to put her up in the garage, and then we're going to walk through clay bar. Okay, back in the garage. And like I said, this is a little bit of a detailed process, so this was a good opportunity to, go have lunch or let your car cool down, that sort of thing. So brought it in the garage, and I shut my garage door so I don't get any afternoon sun that's heating up the paint or heating up the garage too much. So the paint is cool to the touch now, which is good. The metal is cool. So we're going to clay bar. Now I'm going to use some existing product that I already have. So this isn't CarPro product, but it's good, and it's what I already have, and I'll have good quality clay bar and detailing mist and the like listed in the description for the video. So your clay bar literally is a bar full of clay. Make sure your hands are clean when you pick it up. The other thing that you want to make sure to do is, if you drop it, it's done. Throw it away. And I've had that happen. I've opened my package of clay bar and I drop it. And you're like, well, I can scrape off the parts that picked up some dirt or gravel or something. Throw it away. It's terrible. Just be careful. Most of the packages are big enough that you can tear the existing bar in half, because what you want is a little lump of clay that you're going to spread out to about the size, that you can hold in your fingers and you're going to rub. So like I said, I'm going to use the existing what I have. You can use detailing spray. This is called speed spray. And you're going to spray a patch on your car and gently rub in a crosshatch pattern, side to side, up and down. Spray, 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 up and down. Take the clay, squish it back up in your hand, flatten it back out. If your car is really dirty and you see a lot of material coming off on your clay bar, and you will see little bits of material, like you'll start to see it. I very frequently see a little bit of like brown. It's like the exposed edges of the clay is getting brown. Again, you've got a whole bar. I usually it usually takes about half a bar for the car for me. If your car is really dirty, you're getting a lot of tree sap or residue or whatever it happens to be off as far as contaminants, use half, then use the other half. So don't skimp on these things. Doing a project like this, you really want to make sure to get all of the stages right, which is why I've really gone through every bit and piece in all of this. I want to go through every single stage, because if I'm going to do something like this and make a commitment to a semi-permanent coating on the car, I'm going to invest the time and effort to make sure it's done right. Last thing you want to do is do half the steps or little bits and pieces of it and miss something and have it turn out badly, because there's not a good way to get it back off, right? So do this right. Again, you drop it, start over again. So just spray a little bit, work your car. I tend to do all of the metal surfaces, even though, you pick up contaminants on a lot of the top surfaces. That's where things come down and stick. But I just do them all over really nicely. So clay bar your entire car. Now, there are some power options for this as well. I have a disc for my Orbital Buffer that I could use for clay bar. And I'm going to be honest, I haven't used it yet. So I'm not as familiar with it. So I'm going to use the clay bar, the actual clay bar that I have, and use that because I have the materials. So I'm going to do that stage, and then we're going to be looking to use the Orbital Buffer to use a machine polish and really polish it off really nicely. So let's do the clay bar, and I'll show you what's next. Okay, so all the clay bar is done. Again, just reminders as you go through this. If the clay bar starts to stick more detailing mist, speed spray, whatever the brand is that you have, make sure that your clay bar is not sticking down. Also, keep an eye on your clay bar. So, rub for a little bit, flip it over, use the other side, then mash it back together, flatten it back out, and do it again. Always keep an eye on your clay bar. So if you feel like you're getting some extra resistance, look at your clay bar. Make sure you haven't picked up a larger piece of contaminant, a little bit of gravel, a little bit of grit, something that you're then going to grind into your paint. So this is a fantastic thing to do to smooth your paint out and get contaminants off, but if you're not careful with it, you could potentially scratch your paint. So don't do that. When you're done, throw it away because you're not going to use it again. If you used half of your clay bar, if you came in a bigger bar and you used half, very frequently they'll come in little containers or something like that. You can put them in a Ziploc bag to help keep them from drying out. You can keep it in a container and keep it for another day. If you've used both sides, that's fine. That's what it's there for. Okay? And throw it away. Don't reuse it. The other thing that I did is I used another microfiber towel to wipe off a little bit of the excess detailing mist. And like I said, I have a couple of different brands just from accumulation over time. I used up all I had of one kind and I finished off with the other. That's okay. Don't worry about using too much. Make sure that your clay bar isn't dry, and it'll tell you because it'll stick down when it's too dry. So the next step after that, or after this, is going to be the orbital buffer. So I'm going to set that up and then I'm going to talk through the process a little bit. I highly recommend this next step because, again, if you're going to put all this time and investment in, make sure that you do it right the first time and it looks good for years to come. So if you don't have an orbital buffer, you can absolutely do it manually. You can get a really good, very light polish that will help take out a little bit of the surface scratches in your clear coat, help clean up any swirl, anything like that. An orbital buffer is really good. Since I have this tool, I'm going to show you about this as well. I strongly recommend it. And they're not inexpensive, right? They can be a little pricey depending on what you get. And you may feel like the price is more than seems reasonable or that you want to invest. And I felt that way for a long time. And I eventually got around to getting one. And when you can, for example, wax your car, you can polish and wax your car in an hour and be done. Suddenly you realize what an amazing tool it really is, and the investment starts to pay off. So I bought one about a year ago. I really appreciate it. Obviously, I'm not going to use it to wax the car today, but I'm going to use it with a little bit of machine polish to help take the haze out of clear coat. So let me get that all set up, and I'll come back and I'll show you how to use it. Okay, so let's look at what we've got here. So orbital buffer, great thing. So I've got a corded one. You can get them cordless, which is nice. Then you don't have to struggle with the cord. If it is corded, make sure to throw it over your shoulder so it's not banging into your paint or scraping down the side of your car. I always wrap it kind of over my shoulder as I'm buffing. Now, a million questions. I could do an entire video just on your orbital buffer. So in summary, if you have one, hopefully this is a refresher. Again, you're going to work in a crosshatch pattern. In this case, I'm going to put and this is a very light machine polish. So I'm gonna put it in a swirl on my pad. Don't start the pad away from the car. So put the product on your pad, put the pad on the car, then start your orbital buffer, or it'll spray all over the place. I've done it. Set your your buffer for your correct speed for your product. That's going to depend on, again, what you have. So in my case, it's at speed 3. It's really going to depend on what your machine is going to require, what your product is going to require. And I'll link all of this and good examples of these. But again, there's so many choices in these devices that I can't be too specific because that's very specific for what I have, both product and machine. Okay, so you're going to work in a crosshatch pattern. You'll go up and down and then side to side in the same patch, working gently. You don't have to work too hard. Don't burn it into your paint. In this case, I've got a front handle and a back, and I'm just going to press gently as it works through to take out swirls. Depending on how aggressive that you are in this stage really is going to depend on your car. If you've got deep swirls or deep scratches, then you're going to require maybe several stages of this. I only have just very light swirls just from normal driving. So I'm using a very light product and we'll take a single pass at this. And so if you have needs that are much more aggressive than that, that's a whole separate subject, and you're going to want to spend your time here. Also, as a side note, this is the place prior to doing this that you're going to want to do any touch-up paint as well. So if you've got any rock chips or anything else like that, you're going to clean that up before you do this stage. Now's your opportunity to fill those rock chips. There's a lot of really good brands and providers out there and vendors for color matching paint chip correction. Do that before you do this stage. So I'll show you this briefly. It's gonna be a little hard to see with the lighting. But again, so in my case, I've got my cable up and over my shoulder. I'm gonna open up my product here. There we go. All right, so I'm gonna put a swirl. I'm not gonna put too much product on. I'm gonna put a swirl into the middle, like that. So I've got a swirl in the material. All right, now I get the cable. It's gonna be a little bit loud, but put it on the car, turn it on. When you turn it off on the car. Don't pick it up and turn it off, because again, you're going to sling product all over the place. It really sucks. I did it once without thinking with a really pretty wet pad, and I just threw, it was amazing. It was all over the windshield, all over me, all over the garage, all over another car. It was really a hassle. So put it on your car, turn it on, have it on the car, turn it off. So I've done a little bit of section very, very gently. I'm going to do the rest of the car as I move through. I'm going to say buy one of these if you can. It's really going to save you a lot of time. It's really worth it if you really love your car. And plus, you can go through multiple cars. I've polished and waxed 3 cars easily in an afternoon because of one of these. So this is the next step. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to polish everything really lightly, and I'll come back to you with the final decontamination stage. Okay, so the light polish is done. As you can see, I still have a little bit of film left from the polish. That's going to have to all come off. There's a couple of different ways of coming at this, depending on what you want to do. So the next stage is the eraser, is the CarPro eraser that I'm going to use regardless of what I do next. Now, I've got enough polish left that in my case, I think I'm going to push it back out on the driveway and wash it one last time, hose it down, and start with a good thorough rinsing. Keep in mind, you're going to have to dry it again. I start with a good thorough rinsing to see if I get enough of the polish off that I can go straight to the eraser after that. But I'm going to push it back, hose it down, if need be, wash it again, bring it back in and dry it, and then I'm going to go over the whole car with the eraser so there's no residue left, right? So this whole effort so far has been removing contaminants. But some of the materials we use, the chemicals we used, are contaminants for the ceramic. So the eraser does a really good job of taking absolutely everything left. You're going to be right down to your bare, clean, nice, smooth paint. So I need to get this off. Like I said, in my case, I'm going to push it back. So I'll get that, and then I'll show you the eraser next. Okay, so the car's back in after our last and final wash with my regular car soap. Again, once the ceramic coat is done, I'm going to be using the proper reset and reload products from CarPro to help maintain the ceramic. So in the interim, the last remaining step, eraser. So this is a great product to get any lingering chemicals, anything else that's left from your polish, from the tar, from the rust, anything else that's going to come off your paint. Make sure your car is really dry. Read the directions really well on eraser on how to use it, but it's going to be spray and then dry off with a microfiber towel. And go over all of the surfaces you're going to put the ceramic coat on. Just spray it on, wipe it off, make sure that everything's clean, because we're really down to the last step, which is the application of the ceramic coat. All of this has been prepped to make sure that you do it right from the get-go. And so the coating goes on without any issues, and it looks great for years to come. So make sure to do this last step. I'm going to go over the car, wipe everything down, make sure I've got no lingering chemicals. All right, the weather's done me a favor here, right here at the end. We're at the final stage, and we're going to be applying the CQ UK 3.0 here in just a second. But a reminder about weather. So when you apply this, it's just started to rain on me a little bit. It's lightly raining outside, where it was really sunny earlier today. Do not let your car get wet. Once you apply your ceramic coating, it's going to need to cure for 24 hours. Now, I've read everything that says 12 to 24, but it seems like the consensus is give it 24 hours. Absolutely. Okay, so make sure to do that. So as soon as I'm done here, my car's going to sit in my garage for the next 24 hours. It's not going to be out in the rain even when we're done. When you open your package, you're going to come up with a couple of things. Of course, the CQ UK, which is fantastic. You're going to come up with the microfiber cloth, and you're going to come up with the foam applicator. You're going to take the foam applicator and put this little microfiber cloth over the top of it like this and hold it into place as you're applying it. And you'll place a bead of the CQ right down the center. Okay, I'll talk about application in just a second, but let's talk about your microfiber cloth that they include. So you're going to use this to buff off the CQ, throw it away when you're done. It's really nice cloth, but the ceramic coating is going to harden and crystallize inside that cloth, and if you try to use it again for something else, you're going to scratch your car. So for as nice as it is, it's great that they include it. Make sure to throw it away when you're done. So you're going to put a bead, like I said, right down the center of your application, and then you're going to work in roughly 2x2 sections. Don't try to do the whole car in one shot. 2x2 sections. So you're going to apply in a crosshatch pattern, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And obviously I don't have any product on right at the moment. And then up and down, okay, to make sure to coat evenly. Now, the one other thing is the instructions say you can also apply in a circular pattern as well. The consensus I've seen generally is crosshatch, so I'm going to do crosshatch. So what you're going to do is you're going to apply back and forth in that pattern, in a crosshatch pattern, in a section at a time, all the way around. And then you're going to buff it off with the microfiber cloth. And buff it off, flip the cloth over, buff it again. Now the other thing is, I've got gloves on for this section. None of the instructions actually say anything about wearing gloves during this, but everybody I've seen apply this have gloves on. So I just got some typical non-latex gloves on that I'm going to use to apply this because I want to keep it off my hands. So really straightforward. The other thing that we're going to do is we're also going to do a little bit of the CarPro reload. So once you've put this on, you've buffed it on, you put it on and you buffed it off, you're going to spray, do a nice gentle misting spray and buff of the reload, and that will help also to keep it from spotting. It'll help cure the CQ over time, and it's the correct next step. So let's get started with this. So I'll show you here the very first pass. Open the bottle for the first time here. Want to make sure to show this. It's important to show all the steps, so you don't have to show them all if you're just repeating the same thing over and over again, right? Okay, so I've got my applicator pad. It's over here. And I'm going to put a nice bead right down the middle, and it's a clear liquid, and it goes on, and then back and forth. And you can see where it goes on. It kind of is a wet film. So help you keep track of where you are, right? All right, so that was back and forth, so now I'm going to go up and down. You got to love the ridges of the hood, right? So make sure that you're coming over the ridges of your hood if you have a similar hood to mine, that you're not missing any spots, you're skipping over, you're going too fast, right? Okay, so there we go. That's about a 2x2 patch, like that. And it's that simple. And again, we'll apply a little bit more, put it on, work another section, work your way all the way around the car, and then we'll do the reload in those steps, and I'll show you that. But we're down to the most important part. All right, jump out to it. I'm going to get it done. Okay, so I've tried to give a higher view, a little bit higher than the car in some of the previous shots. The ceramic coat's on, and right at the moment, from what I can see, from what the camera sees, it's not doing quite justice to how mirror it already is. So like looking down the side of the car and seeing the outside reflected in the sides, it is just bright, just mirror bright. So the last thing we have to do is within a half an hour of putting the CQ coat on, you want to put on a coat of reload. And that will help to make sure that there's no spotting or anything else while it's curing. So again, hopefully you stocked up in microfiber towels. You're going to need 2 more. Make sure to follow the directions really, really well. Shake your reload really, really well to make sure it's all mixed up, and you're going to spray and buff off with your microfiber. Now, a couple of things really quickly in the process of putting the CQ on that I want to share. So before I actually really went around and went in great detail to put the CQ on, I took a microfiber towel and opened all my doors, opened my trunk, opened everything where water might drip still out. Because as you can imagine, the last thing you want is as you're pressing on all those panels and moving those panels around or your mirrors, that you get some water drip that comes out of them. And even then, I got a little bit a couple of times, and I immediately got on it with a microfiber towel. I also think I called the towel out of the CQ pack earlier microfiber. It's not, it's micro suede. So make sure to get all the water off you can so there's no issues when you're putting the ceramic coat on. with water dripping down or anything else like that. So that should be good. And again, as you work in small sections, now the description of the product says that you buff it off when it flashes. And the other information says once it's dry. You can feel it. So when you put a bead or put a line of the CQ down your applicator and you're doing your crosshatch pattern, you can feel where suddenly your applicator doesn't want to slide anymore. And it really goes from, kind of smooth sliding to resistant, really, really, the transition's really quick. So you can tell when it's ready to go, and then you can just buff it all off with a micro suede towel and make sure to get all that. I also did a walk around on the car to see if I missed anything where I can see where there's a little bit of I didn't buff it quite well enough. And then the other thing is lighting is really important. The one thing that I struggled on the most, if there was any struggle at all, was making sure that I covered everything. What section did I do on the hood? What's the next section I need to do? You could always use a little bit of painter tape as markers of I went out to here and put a piece of painter tape out there. I also just used reflections because I could see where there was the haze of the coat before it flashed, and I could see where that would be, and then I'd buff it off and I'd do the next section. You can also use panel sections as well, of okay, from this line in the panel to the door handle, and that's the section I'm doing down, and then the door handle to the next line in the panel and move down. So there's really logical ways you can divide the work up as you go. Overlap isn't a problem, obviously, but obviously you don't want to overlap 3 and 4 and 5 times and quadruple coat and run out of product. So I did my whole car. I've got about 40% of a bottle left. I might have applied it a little heavy. I probably did that on purpose after reading some of the advice about the product and just saying it doesn't hurt to put it on a little heavy. So I think I probably did, which is good. All right, so now reload. So again, we're going to spray, read the directions, shake it really well. I'm going to spray it on a light mist and buff it off with a towel. And then at that point, we're done. And you just need to let it cure. At that point, I'll cure everything up or clean everything up. We'll talk about the wrap up of the project a little bit. But at this point, you're almost done. So reload and get on it. Okay, so I got a brief just moment where the rain stopped so I can back the car out and put it into a better spot in the garage. But you also get a better idea. Now, it is heavy overcast right now, no direct sunlight, but you can see incredibly shiny. And this is not even fully cured yet. So I'm really impressed. I gotta get it back inside before it starts to rain. It could start raining again any second, but I wanted to show you since I had this opportunity, and I'll have a brief wrap up in just a second. Okay, so all cleaned up. Out in the garage, car's in, good to go. And I just want to cover a couple last things now that we're done. So you can tell it was a fairly straightforward process. It's not all that hard. It should be faster for you if you follow these steps than it was for me. So don't be daunted by that. And even if it does take you a while, it's going to save you a lot of money to do this yourself. And you're using pro level materials, which is absolutely fantastic. But this is going to change how you treat your car from now on. You're going to absolutely want to use the correct shampoo. So you're not going to just want to run to your auto parts store and get the Turtle Wax shampoo. Make sure you get the correct CarPro shampoo that will help maintain your ceramic coat. Same thing for that reload spray. You're going to want to use that as well to help maintain it. So this is something where it's not a small investment to do this for your car. And you want it to last as long as possible because this is vastly better than wax. It's vastly better than those options. And if you maintain it, it's going to last a lot longer too. So that investment is going to last longer and longer. And so your return on investment is going to be even better. So CarPro has some advice that I think is great advice regardless of whether you use their products or not. Don't ever take your car through one of those spinning car washes. It's a bad idea regardless. And CarPro strongly suggests that you don't. You shouldn't take your car there anyway. Do you want your dealership to wash your car? Well, maybe not, because you don't know how they're washing it and they're not going to be using the right products. You shouldn't clay bar your car. Once your ceramic coat is actually set, that'll be the last time for a long time that you ever clay bar your car. If you have contaminants or anything else like that, their shampoo should take them off. And worst case scenario, the Iron X will help also dissolve any contaminants that are on your surface, the surface of your paint without harming that ceramic coat. So you're not going to clay bar your car again. So just some basic precautions to make sure that you take care of it, and it's gonna last for as long as you want it to last, and it's really going to look good. Secondarily, make sure that you give the proper amount of cure time. If you live in a place that's really warm, it's going to cure faster. But again, give it the time. So when you do this project, make sure you set aside enough time to do it, but you also set enough time aside that you're not like, oh, I've got to drive my car the very next morning to go to work and maybe the weather's bad. Plan accordingly, all right? So I really want to thank Detailed Image. They are a fantastic company to get your products from. They ship quickly. They have pro-level products that the rest of us can use, and they really are one step better, and sometimes more than one step better. So strongly recommend them. All of the links to everything that I used today will be in the description of the video, so you know what to buy and the reasons to buy it. If you like what you've seen, please click subscribe. It makes a huge difference for my channel, and that also means you'll get a notification for the very next project that I have coming up, and we can stay in touch that way. It means a lot to me, it means a lot to my channel, and I really appreciate your support. I look forward to seeing you on my next project.